Hey, this is Stuchu, and with me again is Max Melit because IEM Sydney is coming up, and so I wanted to ask an Australian about all these Australian teams that are at the event because I don't know much about any of them besides Renegades, right?
Mm,
So
right.
I want you to give me a quick crash course or whatever about these Australian teams because I know you are doing a domestic perspective about all of the different
Correct.
going on. So you should definitely check out that series if you're more interested in that particular scene. But where do you want to start? Is there any? I guess we can start at the top or
Uh,
start at the bottom. But I don't know which one is the bottom. So
yeah. Well, I think starting at the top's a good way to say it, because it'll actually keep people interested. They'll actually have
yeah.
something to invest in because Greyhound is, I would say, by far the best team in Australia. And if there's any team from the Australian scene that's going to have a chance to upset a Space Soldiers or a Renegades, that sort of level of team, then it'll be
Mm-hmm.
Greyhound. Specifically because they have their core three players, Gratisfaction, Urcast, and Dexter. Dexter's probably the best player in Australia right now. Grat, he's their AWPer, probably the second or third, but it's very dependent evaluating players, especially in a scene like Australia.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most people would agree that Dexter, Grat, top three players in Australia. Where you rank them is up for debate. And Urcast is probably a top five to top six player in Australia. And so those core three pretty much just they can hard carry to victory in the Australian scene in general. And as per any domestic scene, it's just a general volatile shit show when it comes to maintaining cores of players and rosters. And so within the top five teams in Australia, there's just a relatively high profile roster move every like month to 2 months. So Chiefs, who were the Australian team that went to IEM Sydney last year, they upset North on Nuke, which was obviously a really big deal for the scene. Their entire team has pretty much split up since IEM Sydney 2017, and
Mm-hmm.
one of their better players from around this time last year in Malta has joined Greyhound, and his additions have only been really recent, sort of the
Okay.
last couple of weeks, and so it'll be interesting to see how Greyhound integrate him in their system. But Greyhound are renowned in Australian CS for having a really, really well thought out structure of play. They are very, very consistent in how they hit their shots, very methodical with their map control, and are definitely sort of the most international style of team in Australian CS, except for maybe Chiefs to a degree, because Tux, their RGL in Chiefs, is a really, really lucid and very, very aware thinker of the game. So I would say those two are sort of, if you were to watch a game from IM Sydney, you'd probably be the most satisfied watching a Greyhound or Chiefs game. And we'll save discussion for order a bit later, because I've only written one feature about Australian CS so far, and it was criticizing Order's play, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, when we're talking about a bunch of these like domestic teams, the way I generally think about it is how many conditions does it take for a particular team? Like, because I think in general you should consider them underdog teams,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
How many conditions does it take for them to upset a particular team, right? So, what are the conditions, for instance, for like Greyhound, since you think they're the best? Like,
Hmm.
let's look at the group. Basically, the people, the teams I imagine you would want them to upset be like SK, Cloud9, Space Soldiers, Renegades, Phase. But
Yeah, they have a pretty good group,
right,
in
because I
all
think
things considered. Yeah,
all of them have like serious problems, like
yeah.
all five of them, right? So
Mhm.
I'm not even sure which one would be the best right now, to be honest. Like it's a really weird toss up between all five of them,
Yeah.
right?
Uh, well, the biggest thing with underdogs is that you just bank on the fact that the team underestimates them. But the problem is, Australian CS, there's so many fucking online leagues, and people just assume and they like always sort of dismiss domestic play. But Greyhound, I bet you, if you looked at HLTV, they would have some of the most maps played out of any core. Like in 2018 so far, because there's I think three to four online leagues, a bunch of stupid little lands that are in Asia that
Mm-hmm.
like the Vegas squadrons of the world go to. So there is a lot to analyze Greyhound over. And if you're a Cloud9 and you have that first round matchup against them, there is nothing stopping them from like reading them well and actually being able to anti-strike Greyhound to a degree. But the biggest condition for a team like Greyhound or a team like Order especially is just straight underestimating them,
Mm-hmm.
because I think there is a fairly um, large misconception about the levels of individual skill in general.
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about a team like Greyhound, the sort of gap between their best three players, and the best three players of a team like Cloud9 or like Space Soldiers, it is not as big as people think. Because the biggest difference lies in sort of the internalized models of play within Greyhound. So, for example, if they are on T side Inferno and they're pushed top mid, like they'll have this certain way of taking top mid, but the way they react and respond to certain pressures put on their top mid take aren't intuitive and aren't well thought out against a team comparatively against a team like Space Soldiers, because they just don't have to deal with the same amount of pressure when you're the top dog in this relatively weak scene. So yeah, first of all, not being able to respect their individual players and not abusing their inferior model for playing the game would be the biggest condition that comes with underestimating them. And then Greyhound themselves, like, I mean, man, if Dexter and Grat can go off, like you're talking about some really, really talented players, especially Gratisfaction. He is an incredibly adept AWPer, and I can definitely see him doing some damage against a team like Cloud9, who may want to run a looser T side and maybe need to figure out some things with their CT rotations. So I feel like that's definitely a big, if we're still talking about conditions, a way they can win.
Okay. And let's see here. So Grat and Dexter. Okay. So how much LAN experience do those two players in specific have then? Like,
oh, well, I mean, like,
doesn't seem like it'll be that much internationally, but just like, but locally it's decent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's there's a fair whack of LANs. Like, it's obviously not going to be as much as a Danish scene that has Copenhagen games and stuff to go to, but when you're the best team in a region like Australia and you have all these online leagues, the biggest problem for Greyhound is which one they go to, because they often have to be like, all right, we can't go to the small domestic LAN because we can go to Shanghai, or we can go to Minsk, Chinese province, to play an international LAN. So yeah, they'd have a fairly decent bank of LAN experience to go off of. Yeah, if anything's going to be their downfall, it'll be it'll just be their ability to respond to international pressures. And because if you look at their group, like, I mean, if any of those teams they're playing start to feel confidence and get momentum against Greyhound, I don't really think they have the full 5-man lineup to be able to sort of thwart and then counter just straight individual pressure against them. Like, I mean, Tyloo, SK, Cloud9, pretty much everyone there except for Order and Renegades can just straight run over Greyhound man for man, I think. Okay. So that would be a bigger problem than their lack of LAN experience, I think.
Okay, so what about their map pool? Like, when I generally look at
questions I don't know the answers to.
Yeah. Like, okay. All right. Yeah. So I guess we'll skip that. Basically, I guess it'll come down to how much of a mastermind FNS truly is. I guess, like, if he can somehow figure this out. But the problem with like that is, like, he just came off of the LAN event. So it's been just like a week, and it's mostly been travel and online play, because that shit never stops. So I'm not exactly sure how much he could have studied, right?
Little tangent. What did you think of Cloud9 in Marseille? Because that's going to be a good sort of comparison. Because I have a pretty good idea of how Greyhound play, and from what I saw in Cloud9, like, I mean, based on those T sides I saw from C9 in Marseille, I think Greyhound, it'll be a close game if we see C9 pull out the sort of same shitty lukewarm T sides from Marseille.
Feels like they had like 2 days of practice. You know what I mean? Like, basically, as far as I can tell, he just got slotted to this team because he spent like all of his time masterminding this gigantic team shuffle move for months, and then when he got there, he's like, oh shit, I have to now actually start doing things, but there's no time left. And so he's just using, like, my opinion is, like, he's actually just using the old playbook of Cloud9. It's not that different.
Oh, no, I saw some things, like, especially in the way they were pacing strats, especially on Mirage. It didn't feel like it was as much of a I'm trying to think of the example, but it was the way, you know how they have that classic con take and the fast short push, C9 on Mirage. I think there was one round that distinctly sticks out to me where they ran that strat, except instead of pushing Tarek and automatic through con, they just sort of sat really forward on catwalk and then baited a reaction, and it was way more like slowed down with their pace. And I saw a lot of small little things like that where I'm like, oh, FNES clearly has changed that up to a degree where it's not rushing things as much, and it felt far more controlled in elements. But at the same time, when you're controlling players like Tarek and Automatic, you take away so much of what makes them great as players. And speaking to Greyhound CT side specifically, I mean, they are, one of their better elements is the fact that they are really good at just being able to punish mistakes and being able to pressure sort of. I don't want to compare them again like Astralis, but sort of in the way they can pressure off standard CT spots and then be able to really successfully mid-round on CT side with dynamic setups to punish sort of stagnant defaults, which is a plaguing problem in Australian CS. Just teams sticking off a default and running these cookie cutter mid-rounds. They're really, really good at punishing that. So there were things from Cloud9's game that I think in this matchup specifically could be of notice.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, in my opinion, very complicated to judge how like a favorite team will play against an unknown underdog team, because sometimes they'll just go balls out, like they'll just start scrimming, and so that's a completely different style, and that could completely throw off like an underdog who is specifically preparing for what they saw in the VODs, right? So it's like
100%, right. Especially with someone like Skadoodle who can just play lights out. He had a really good, must say. I thought him and Tarek were the two standout players to me.
Yeah, feels like
and Rush to a degree.
Like Rush was better than he was, so that's good.
I
Automatic, like I feel like he did drop off, but I guess that's a given the fact that he's like so attached to Stewie, like just the way they think, I guess.
And he was also more forward on a lot of their T rounds. I saw.
Yeah,
he wasn't given as much sort of space because Stewie 2K. If you remove him from your team, like that is such a fucking absence you have to fill on T side. Yeah. Like his stats on T side were insane in terms of his entry attempt percentage and his success rate. Like man, that's a big hole.
Even when he even in those some of those games where he just straight up dies, he still got more space. So
oh god, yeah.
So like even like in a weird intangible like that, he's a very different player from FNS, obviously. So well, we'll have to see. All right, so how would you put a percentage on the chance of Greyhound upsetting one of these teams in a best of 3? Like what's the most likely team you think they'll upset, and then what's the percentage of that?
Well, Tyloo obviously, because I think Greyhound actually beat Tyloo in a best of 3 recently on LAN. So Tyloo, I'd probably put like 50-60% chance on them beating.
Yeah.
If not higher, depending on how their form is against C9. And against Space Soldiers and Renegades, I definitely feel like they have a solid chance as well. And maybe against SK, because, if we saw the SK...
SK was so awful.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, who knows? If SK continue that weird, really disjointed like system of play, then, yeah, I'd put probably, if you force my hand, I'd put 50-60 on Tyloo, probably 30-40 on Renegades, 20-30 on Space Soldiers, and 10-20 on SK.
All right. But you think so? From that, we're gonna assume Cloud9 FaZe the 2 favorites in your view.
Oh god, yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty much the same. So yeah, man, SK was the fall just keeps getting worse for them.
It's embarrassing, man. Like I don't know why, but as someone who likes watching Elite CS, I feel embarrassed watching them play. I'm like, fuck. I like this team at one point. Oh,
but I mean, 4 out of 5 of them are now speaking a different language than what they used to. So, it's tough.
And the worst part about it is it's one of those things where you have to give them time, but you can never evaluate them properly in the moment because you're like, oh, they're still figuring out the system. But it's like, yeah, they're still losing games though. That's the most frustrating part to me.
Like the problem I have is like remember the time when they first got Phelps. They were losing games, but Phelps, Fur, and Cold Zero were still like kicking ass, even though they were losing games.
Stewie 2K as well.
Yeah. If
we're talking stylistically.
Yeah, you're right. And stylistically, Stewie 2K and Phelps are pretty similar, right? But because they took out Taco, like they basically like Taco's a very different player from Bolts, I think. Just the way they play the game is different, I think. So yeah, it's like. And I think they straight up told Stewie they're not going to put him in like the taco rolls. No. So it's awful.
They're going to have to fully restructure an SK system. Which,
I did say, I think I told you and Sam this, like I thought they might just like throw Stewie on the op or something
Yeah,
really
yeah,
weird like that.
something strange.
Because I
That's fun.
thought they had to do something really fucking strange to like get that team to work, but it's not
Obviously
going
not.
well.
Yeah, things aren't looking good over there.
It is not looking good because like there's no hope in the sense like there's no star players going off, so it's like
No.
not much hope. All right,
Yeah.
so let's go to
Moving on.
who else was in this one? I guess go to order because they just happen to be in the same group. So
Yeah, this is one of my favorite teams to talk about. They're an incredibly interesting team, Order, because imagine like, I don't want to say like the phase of Australian CS, but they essentially have this infamously large organizational backing. There's always, the talks of their salaries and whatnot going around. And amongst these five players, you essentially have like some of the biggest names in Australian CS. So Liaz, he has been like behind the scenes and stuff like that. Like there's been offers thrown at him from NA teams. He is one of the most ridiculously talented players in Australian CS. Like late 2016 to pretty much like the present, he's been a constant top 5 player. He plays that late round cold zero type role where he just fucking will clutch you every single 1v3, lurks, dynamic CT player, just incredibly talented rifler that can do it all. And so they have him as their star player,
mm-hmm.
and that's a massive acquisition in its own right. And then you have Hats and Sicko. Well, I should probably back up. You have Emag, who was on that Winter Fox roster, because one of the things that people won't realize, but Winter Fox, which was the Australian team that wasn't Renegades, they took essentially the best 5 players from Australia, the NA org, flew them over to NA. They bombed out of like every single online game they played. And then all those 5 best players in Australia came back to Australian CS, and over the course of 3 months essentially dissolved back into the top Australian teams, but they all went different ways. And so Emag is one of those players from the Winter Fox lineup who is now, with no previous experience, calling Order. And he's there, another really incredible rifler. You have Hats, who's been like perennially sort of star player, but in lower tiered Australian teams. And he's finally had his sort of breakout moment in getting into Order and having some big games with them. He also picks up the secondary AWP, and he's a very handsome gentleman. He's sort of like the like a Kirby in a sort of way, you know what I mean? Like goes to the gym, has a really solid social media presence, plays really fundamentally sound CS, always trying to do shit right. Sicko was debatably one of the best. He was a better. It's tough. He was like at Gratifaction's level as an AWPer for a little bit. He really solid AWPer, similar sort of style, just punishing CT play, can post up on angles, can get forward on T side. And then you have Alistair, who was another member of the old Chiefs lineup from IEM Sydney 2017. And he's like the Henny of the team, like super explosive, volatile, can't really be like an ADHD sort
Shows
of
up
player.
1 out of 3 games.
Exactly, just your third star. And so on paper, this is technically the best team in Australia in terms of the talent they have to work with, the pedigree of the names. But they play, because of how Emag calls, it's this very loose style that struggles in the mid round, struggles to form a plan B, solid off the default, but like pretty lukewarm in executes. And they went to IEM Katowice, and I think they won. They won like, I think only like 12 rounds or some shit.
Yeah.
They struggle a lot in terms of structure, and they haven't really evolved the way they've played since they formed at the start of this year, like under the Order banner.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really good online, and being able to upset what was one of the better teams in Australia, Tainted Minds, who aren't at this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good at being able to upset top teams. But I think out of all the Australian teams here at IEM Sydney, Order will be the team that will either just show the fuck up, and you'll be like, all right, why isn't Liaz, why isn't Sicko, why isn't Hats in the North American team? And they'll completely blow everyone out of the water with individual skill that teams won't be prepared for. Because like someone like FaZe, who's expecting to get anti-strat and expecting to play sort of a team that's trying to read them, might just end up playing a scrim against 5 really talented individual players and lose their duels, which, could with what we've seen from FaZe, could happen. It could happen.
I mean, it happens in the later parts of this tournament usually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can happen, I guess.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know what you mean. Like basically, like that's like it's tough though, just because of the way you're describing it. Like you're talking about
Yeah,
like the mid rounds and then like late rounds. Like FaZe is not that strong in those, but it's not like
relatively
awful,
speaking. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
So I guess it'll come down to Nico, because I think Nico loves like beating up underdogs. Really,
Yeah.
like that's his
Just
like
free.
that's his kind of like his dream.
Yeah.
It's like the top end players that he struggles with. So yeah,
So there'll either be like a farm for highlight clips because they'll just feed Nico
mm-hmm.
and like just trying to play defaults against him, or low key they could like either post up some good rounds against FaZe, upset Space Soldiers. But I think if you had to put a percentage on all the teams, like in IEM Sydney as a whole, probably the two worst teams at IEM Sydney, I think, relative to playing like international, relatively top tier teams on LAN, I think Order and Boot are at the two lowest end of that spectrum.
Oh yeah, Singaporeans. Okay, yeah.
They're not even a team. I don't even know how they're here. They're beyond the joke. They don't like you. Yeah, I have some stories which I can't say on this.
Okay.
I don't even know how they're a team.
Still got here though. As far
Still got it.
Still got here. That's what matters. They still got here. All right. The last team we'll get to talk about is Chiefs. Chiefs from Group B. They're playing against Fnatic, which is probably an awful sort of team to go up against first round.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you're an underdog. Fnatic's just one of those teams which is just like, oh, so you're the top team in your country. Oh, so you've got some cool individual players. Well, here's fucking Twist with a Deagle, and it's like, oh, cool. that's what I mean. Lekra with a Deagle. Sorry.
Yeah, Lekra with the Deagle. Yeah.
Sorry. The two the same in my head for some reason. Godsent was a terrible time to analyze the game. Yeah, so you know what I mean. Like, yeah, I don't see them standing a chance against Fnatic just because of the way Fnatic plays.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll be tough. They can definitely beat Boot. They might have a chance against MVP. Maybe have a chance against RNG. Definitely no chance against Mouse, Navi, Fnatic, or Astralis though.
Okay. But I mean, they're in the much harder group, straight up.
Oh,
like, I think
if they replaced Order, if those two teams were switched and Chiefs was in Order's group, then it would be really interesting. We might be able to see an Australian team go to the playoffs if Chiefs were in Order, because the two of them in the lower bracket in best of threes especially, both Chiefs and Greyhound aren't bad in best of threes because both their team structures are like way more consistent than Order's. So yeah, it's unfortunate the way it was drawn, but yeah, I think Chiefs pick it out.
They didn't know at the times, like, but apparently like they didn't know SK FaZe were gonna drop off that hard. No.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean,
you'd just be so upset if you're the IM organizers. Like, fuck.
They're like, oh, we did such a good job until, right? Okay.
We could have invited Astralis. Why did we make them go through the EU qual? Fuck.
Mm-hmm. Right. So have you watched any Renegades?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How have they been doing? Because I stopped watching after like NAF left. I was like, okay, their best players left. This is gonna be real rough. And then they replaced him with Jacob. I was like, oh, this is gonna be even rougher than I thought.
Jacob's not bad on Renegades. In all fairness, I probably can't go too in depth on Renegades because I haven't watched a lot of their games, but I talked to some of their players, and yeah, no, they seem to be a team that's like when NAF leaves your team, like obviously you're gonna struggle a bit more. Just NAF was hard carrying that team, just at levels we just haven't seen for a long time. And but I really rate Nifty as a player. I really rate JKS and Ustillo as players, and Azza not so much. But Ustillo and JKS I both think are pretty good. JKS obviously way more than Ustillo. And
Azza is the Henny of this team in a way.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah, except with a rifle and more inconsistent.
Except even more inconsistent. It's like it's not like 1 out of 3 games. It's like 1 out of 5 or something weird.
Yeah.
But the one time he shows up, it's amazing. The one time he shows up, it's amazing. But the rest of them, it's like, that's
But
rough.
I mean, there's stories about Azza doing that, but like in local Brisbane lands, like it's not like some type of thing where he's the pressure of playing in North America. Like he was a hot and cold player from day one, apparently. Like, yeah, I've heard some things. Like if you get him in a bad mood or in an off mood before a game, then it's just then that's just it. He just doesn't frag. But yeah, Jacob in this team, not bad. I think he's a very very important part of this rifling core, and he feels more at the level of a Renegades. I don't think he's the NAF level of player that will straight hard carry them, but he's definitely the standout player on this roster in terms of what he can do within a round, especially on CT side as well. I think he's a really good CT player. But yeah, I would expect Renegades to the Space Soldiers matchup's really good. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat them. I wouldn't be surprised if, given the group, Renegades got out of groups and made it into playoffs. That would not surprise me at all. Especially because of how weak SK is looking and because Cloud9 are pretty, like, I mean, if Renegades can do what they did to Optic, where, fucking they managed to reset after Config dropped 47 kills on them and win a best of 3.
Oh yeah, that Optic. I was trying to figure out which Optic you were talking about.
Yeah, the that Optic, yeah, the one that's popping up on Twitter right now. Yeah, so I feel like if Renegades can, I'd back them in a best of 3, especially on land or on home soil, and I know that I really know that they want to play on a land stage in front of a home crowd.
Oh, see, that's where you lost me, because Renegades
I don't know,
Renegades they crumble really badly. Like, I don't know if that's the case with this particular lineup, but they've always crumbled like weirdly. Like all those times they lost the Mongols when they.
We're going back a fair bit there.
But I mean, those are the times that always stuck out in my mind. It's like, oh, you lost to the Mongols again? How did you do this again?
Well, dude, that was who? There was some Mongols is like one of the funniest teams in the world right now, because they got invited to the IEM Sydney Asian qualifier. Except they don't have Zilkenberg or Machine Gun, which was their 2 best players.
Yeah, I remember.
So they literally just have like a Mongolian mixed team with just like these random Mongolian players that actually managed to take a map off of Boot. That's how fucking bad Boot is. They lost 16-9 on Mirage to a Mongolian mixed team that don't even have like Wikipedia pages. Like Boot is so fucking bad. Like, I can't even emphasize. Like, it's beyond the joke. And they beat Signature.
Well, listen, it's a good thing then that this is a CS:GO tournament and not Overwatch League, because then you'd have to watch them go 0-40 for the entire season. So
don't even know that reference because I haven't watched a single game of Overwatch League. So
all right, I'll tell you. Basically, there is a history being made in the Overwatch League because there is this team that's terrible, and they have already broken every single record of every other esports team ever for a losing record.
They're the Cleveland Browns of the Overwatch League.
They are literally the Cleveland Browns, and like no matter what they do, they continue failing. They grasp defeat out of the jaws of victory every single time.
Every time.
It's actually amazing, but yeah, I'm the only one enjoying their loss. Everybody else is like, "Oh, go underdogs." I'm like, "Yeah, beat them down. This is great." But that's just me. That's just me. Okay.
Oh well, no. One other thing that I want to touch on just before we move on. I didn't talk about Chiefs. Some of the players in Chiefs.
Yeah. Okay.
There's one player I want to mention specifically in Chiefs. Texter. He is straight prodigy. He's 16 years old, and he started playing when he was, I think, 15, and maybe a top 5 player in Australia right now. Like, the kid is, and he does it on LAN. Like, he hard carries teams on LAN. And so, just add that little note there, because if there's a sort of breakout player that you want to keep your eyes on specifically, like Texter, man.
Texter? Okay.
The man's hot.
I hope he doesn't turn into another Bientet, because that was like a dud.
Well, yeah. So in all fairness, he went to Tai Lu and was.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically stuck in the Asian scene. So it might just be like one of those weird situations where like he might actually be good, but there's actually no good team.
Yeah, I mean, like, he joined the best team in Asia, which was Tai Lu, and he's forced to speak Mandarin to a degree. Like, yeah, that's pretty rough.
Mandarin sucks. Like, it's a tough language. All right, so let's see here. Basically, I personally think IEM Sydney can be broken down to 2 questions. So I'll tell you the questions. I think you choose which one you want to answer first.
Mm-hmm.
Can anyone possibly beat Australis? Is the first question, and then the second question is who is getting second after Australis?
Interesting. I don't know. I don't think, based on what we saw at Marseille,
Yeah.
like it'd be so unreasonable to say that anyone can beat Australis right now. Like you can't. I don't think you can be on. Like if you watched every single game of Australis at DreamHack Masters, then it'd be dishonest to say that like anyone in the world can beat them right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are playing. They played some of the best CS I've ever seen in it. Marseille. It was absurd, and people are going on about it's like only one reference point. You can't call them the best team in the world.
I've already called them the best team in the world.
I know. I'm calling them the best team in the world. I'm thinking they can win the next major.
Okay, that's how I don't think that's the case because the problem with
hyperbole, but you know,
because the problem with that is like they're going to dominate in the next few months and everybody's going to swap rosters.
Yeah, true.
To try to beat them, so that's the real question for me.
Yeah, and that's when phase simple happens, and I have to go back on my fucking prediction. Yeah,
but no, like basically, like when I saw Australis at DreamHack Marseille, I was like, okay, so this is like the tactical version of Phase's ESL New York. In a sense, you know what I mean? Like they dominated
really
everybody.
well-rounded. Yeah, so fair.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the other key thing to it. It's like it was done in a way where you're like, oh no, they can do this every tournament. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, oh wow, Magiska's just dropping 40 each game. It's like no, every single player is playing so well in this system, and the system on like a macro sense as well is just straight dominating bitches. And so when you see that, it's so hard not to say any team in the world can beat them right now.
Yeah, because like the only piece in the entire system where it's like, okay, this isn't repeatable is like Glaive.
Yeah,
right?
Glaive, yeah.
But like,
yeah.
Even when you think about it like that, it's like, does it matter?
No, 100% not. That's just the extra icing on the cake.
Huh.
When Glaive is your 5th star, that's firing off like holy shit.
Yeah. So yeah, and then the map pool is like ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Just that doesn't that just add it like the one map Australis doesn't want to play just got removed from the pool now.
Yeah.
That is the one. That's the one caveat to IEM Sydney, is Dust 2, and
Dust
that's
2
gonna
is the only. Yeah. That's going to be the upset map basically.
Yeah. But right? I could want it. But if you're Australis, just ban it.
Yeah.
You know
I have the exact same reasons. Like they're probably going to be good on it eventually with Device because I think Device is like one of the best mobile operators. You have Nix on B, it's fine, but no need to risk it here.
No, God no. Just ban everything, win this tournament, reset, become the best team in the world on Dust 2.
Yeah.
I think that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
But I think Na'Vi is just going to be that team where it's like, oh yeah, you want to pick Dust 2? Oh yeah, no, cool. Here's Simple being boosted up onto Cat every single round. I would love to see my dream matchup for second place in my dream world would be Na'Vi Fnatic in the semifinals to play Australis in the finals. That would be my dream matchup. Oh, and then they play Dust 2. Could you imagine Na'Vi Fnatic Dust 2 final map of that series? Oh.
Simple kills everybody, Crims kills everybody, Simple versus Crims.
Oh, no, but like just even the start, like dude, that matchup is one of the best matchups in CS that we haven't seen like on. Oh,
it's true. We haven't seen Crims.
No, we haven't.
We haven't seen that, have we?
So that is going to be such. I want that to happen so bad, and it could happen in the upper bracket. They're gonna. One can imagine Fnatic beats Chief and Na'Vi beats MVPs. That's gonna be so hype. I'm so like that's yeah. That's the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor fight for me right now, man. That's some real shit.
Yeah, except there's like one guy above both of them. I don't know who that would be in this metaphor though.
Yeah. just some dude with like a rifle.
You guys are fighting. You guys are fighting. The gun. Pretty unfair, but okay. So
they're an unfair team to play, but
yeah. So good. So I think it's actually fair to say like the second best team is coming out of Group B also, whether that's Na'Vi, Fnatic, or Mouse. Like you have an argument against that.
Yeah, but like group A is the group A of if they get their shit together. Like if any of those top teams like FaZe, Cloud9, or SK get their shit together, then maybe. But I don't see in the space of time between what we saw at Marseille and what we will see in IEM Sydney. I don't see how they can dramatically turn things around outside of a couple players like hitting a pace streak of form.
Like Cloud9 can't do it.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe.
Like no. Like the reason I'm saying Cloud9 can't do it is because FNS is a structured in-game leader,
Mm.
right? So and that takes time to build. So it doesn't seem like he can do it. SK really can't do it because of the language issues, and then the fact they took like their best team player out, and then put in
Exists.
Stewie. Like that's the, and then the problem with FaZe is they're not playing to like, okay, this is gonna be a weird thing, but like, you remember the original, not the original, but like the second iteration of FaZe, which was like
Well,
FaZe, Nico, like
Kishima and Alu.
yeah, Kiyoshima and Alu, right?
Yeah.
That one was actually a pretty structured team in a weird sense, in the fact that like, they understood where the rules were and how to play off of that. This
Yeah.
current phase plays as if it's old phase with Olaf.
But I mean, Exist isn't that bad. Like, I don't think Exist is
No,
necessarily.
no, it's like
Yeah.
the problem isn't necessarily Exist. The problem is like they think Exist is Olaf.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem.
Yeah.
And
And that was the biggest fear with this team. Like, you can't have Exist as Olaf.
yeah, so they actually have to go back in a sense to how Kerrigan used to call, but
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if Kerrigan has like full control of this team anymore. Like with all the losses and stuff, right? Like
100% agree. 100% agree. I definitely think Nico and Guardian, especially, are just, it feels way more out of control in the later rounds and mid rounds. And even when they're like walking out of spawn, it doesn't feel like it's as like there's as much of an idea in mind of what's going to happen in the round.
mm-hmm.
Like when you see Astralis walk out of spawn, every single fucking round, you're like, oh, okay, like you know what I mean. It feels like there's something. There's a plan in action. They're gonna go for a read. Device is gone. I'm gonna go peek here because I have the right spawn. I have a good timing for this. It feels so much more structured. Whereas when FaZe walk out of spawn, I don't know. I can't articulate it as well, but it definitely does not feel
it feels like
yeah.
it used to have a purpose. Now it feels more free for all than it's ever felt before.
Yeah, well, it had like a volatility in the sense that it would walk out and you're like, okay, we've got a pick, now we can work with that.
Yeah.
Whereas it feels like now there's still that volatility, but it doesn't have that danger and that pressure off of it.
Yeah, like they don't play off of each other nearly as well, and
No.
like my straight up guess is like Kerrigan doesn't have full control anymore. Like, and if Kerrigan doesn't have full control, he can't go back.
Or he might and just might not be calling as well, you know.
That could also be the case.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to say, basically, right? Like,
Yeah.
But that's my guess, just because. And that team has so many weird problems. That's
So
like
many
unsolvable.
Well, I think that's why Exist was so important, and why I think this is the best thing that could happen to FaZe, at least from an analyst point of view. Because just because if we look at Exist, then the thing is, it's like, all right, well now we have a world in which one of these unreplaceable players has been replaced.
Yeah.
You know, so this is the data we're getting from this tournament, from these run of tournaments for FaZe is so valuable because, for example, Nico does not look good at all.
No, he doesn't.
Like he does, like that. You still see the same crazy multi kills. You still see all the highlight clips that you would get, but the gaps between those highlight kills and what he's doing within a round, he's
longer
and longer, dude. And it's that was really shocking for me to watch at Marseille, just especially on Mirage as well. Like watching the way he played Con and how C9 were able to abuse him. Yeah. And just I'm like, what is this? Like that, and that's why Exist is important to me, because if I see that with Olaf, then I don't know, it doesn't feel as impactful, because to me it's like, all right, well at least they have other players who can pick it up, and then other players will pick it up. But with Exist, it's Nico's job, even more now than ever, to frag the fuck out of his mind. And so when you see him not only not doing that, but going the other way and making mistakes, that's why this Exist move is really valuable to me now. Because you can really analyze the shit out of that.
Like I'll put it this way: like it felt like Nico understood in the Alu Kiyoshima lineup, he had to go hard. Like he understood that. I think he lost that edge when they went full superstar.
I think he still had it for
a bit, but like at this point he's lost it, right?
Oh yeah, no, there's no denying it. Like ever since the major. That's why honestly, I honestly think that C9 win at the major, that upset, has literally changed the landscape of CS forever. Straight up. just the impact that has had in the way like teams are restructuring and what happened to the North American scene, into the way it affected FaZe's narrative, in the way that it affected SK's narrative with Stu 2K joint. Like, man, it is that one moment. I can't think of at least in recent memory, a more landmark sort of monumentous thing that has just caused so many ripple effects throughout the rest of this year. And the other key thing with FaZe as well is, if we look back at the end of 2018, like, what the fuck has FaZe done this year at all? Like, this was meant to be the best team in the world that dominated 2018 from a shaky end of 2017. Like, what have they done? So I don't know.
Just a bunch of top placings, but it's like,
yeah,
you expected more from them, right?
Yeah, it's especially if they get overshadowed by Astralis.
It's kind of weird because a lot of FaZe's like the way you talked about is like a lot of FaZe's problems feel like mental.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if they win that major we're talking about, like this is like a counterfactual.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Nico doesn't have as many problems. Guardian doesn't have as many mental problems. Maybe they do continue on to dominate, but maybe that's like the hump they needed to get over.
Well, then the gap, because I agree with what you're saying to an extent, but I think the gap without Olaf isn't as big of a deal because like we won the major, you know what I mean? Like we're the major champion still, whereas it still feels like they're still trying to prove something, but they're lacking a key piece to make that happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's this really weird complex. But sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, but yeah, basically it's like it's a really weird complicated situation because what happens if like FaZe does win that major, right? Like
exactly.
How much does it really change though? Like, because when we think about the next following runs, even there was no way they were going to be that simple. Like at the following tournament after the major was Star Ladder. I don't think there was any way, even if they won that major, they could have been simple anyway.
No. That's the most nebulous thing to analyze. Like, I'll agree with you though. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe they could have taken out Fnatic before Flusha got to game 5.
Mm-hmm. Right? I agree. Before he went God, man.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm pretty sure FaZe is gonna blow up.
yeah, it was surprising as well. Yeah.
I just want to know who they're keeping because I think it's gonna come down to Nico or Kerrigan. I think they're gonna go with Nico.
Well, I think Rain's gonna stay, right? He's been with that.
Rain's been
since fucking Kingwin, right?
Yeah,
like
Rain's like the only lifeline, and he's still a great player. So it's like, why would you get rid of him?
I think they keep Rain, they keep Kerrigan, kick the rest. Would not surprise me.
I mean, that's how I would do it, but I think they're gonna go with Nico.
Yeah, probably. He probably is the most expensive as well.
Actually, I feel like Nico would probably be the player you have to keep because it's like a prodigy level talent, you know, like
and he can still get better.
But like the reason I pick Kerrigan is because if you're going for this international lineup, there's no better leader.
No, I 100% agree. Like who do you get to replace Kerrigan? Kerrigan's probably the most irreplaceable part of this team. Like
basically, my prediction for what's gonna happen is they're gonna go with like Nico, Rain, and then 3 others, and then they're gonna return back to Mouse Sports Clutch Nico Sports era or something. Whereas
amplified,
oh shit, Nico's really good, but they can't get past round of
they're not winning. Yeah, gotcha. Because I think that the current Mouse Sports way of structuring teams is going to be the scaffold and the blueprint for how a lot of teams are going to structure themselves in the future, which is just to have a
really good coach,
average to above average caller who's willing to do his job in game, and then just have a really good coach and just call that cookie cutter brand of CS that allows for individual freedom, round out with a focus on balance of roles as opposed to a balance of like firepower, and then just hope that harmonious relationship between fragging, IGL, and coach flourishes.
Like I think that'll only take you so far though. Like that's my problem with that.
I don't know, man. Like I think
because I feel like Liquid's the exact same model, right?
To an extent,
like, but it's a bit more structured.
Yeah, it's definitely way more structured, and it's also it feels like whoever calls in that team wants to be like that Pronax caller, you know, he's just like, I know exactly what's going to happen in this round, as opposed to Chris J, who just walks in just like, have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. What should I do, my Ukrainian friends? And then LMBT is like, here are all the strats.
Yeah.
And then Chris J just straight calls them, and then Oscar, who's maybe the most independent star in the game. Like, I don't know if you've read those interviews with Mouse, but Oscar just seems to just do whatever the fuck he wants, and then everyone's like, well, he does have a beard and is fragging the fuck out of his mind, so we'll let it
Oscar
happen.
is the weirdest player I've ever analyzed. Like,
I agree.
Like, just he's clearly playing FPL instead of like Pro CS. But the problem is like the times he plays Pro CS is the time when he looks the worst.
I just imagine like just complete silence. Chris J calls a strat, Oscar dies, and then Oscar just goes, one-legged 81 at B, and it's just silent for the rest of the round. Just they might have an AWP pushing A main, and there's just like they're just standing waiting to spawn again.
Like his consistency is awful though, but like his peak is so high. Like I don't even know how you would why you would change his role, but it's like it's so weird that guy.
Well, I mean, Sonny as well. Sonny had a great master. I thought he popped the fuck off.
Sonny, like the rest of the team's good. It's just like Oscar is just so weird to me. Like he is so inconsistent, but his highs are so fucking high.
So god tier. Just like fuck. I imagine he's a really easy person to play with as well. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty fair assumption.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I honestly think a good move for FaZe would be whip out the checkbook, keep Rain Carrigan, and then just like have your pick of Mouse, have your pick of Fnatic, have your pick of who else is a good team. Just source like essentially the same roles and the same level of firepower, but just from different places. Because Carrigan is that leader, and it's not even a feels like he is that leader. When he gets a bunch of new toys to play with, he makes something happen.
He always does.
At every point in his career, that's been the narrative. Like when he has to contend against a bunch of unknowns, and he's just like, fuck, what are we gonna do? He's like that kid that crams before the test and just aces it every time.
Yeah. And I actually think that's like the best type of leader for what they're trying to do too.
100%.
Because when you think about like the international like lineup situation, like I feel like no matter how much time you put into it, there's going to be a hard cap on your teamwork, on your tactics.
There's a lifespan for every roster.
Yeah, right? But like their lifespan is always going to be shorter. So like I'm not like Moses said something along the lines of he might just be the best like honeymoon leader we've ever seen or something. But like after honeymoon, it's over. I'm not certain that's the case. I just think it might just be like that's how these international lineups might go. Like,
and that's just the way he calls as well, I imagine, because there's only so much you can do with like that distinct lack of structure. Well, I mean, like even Glaive on Astralis.
Yeah, like, even Glaive ran out, right?
Yeah. There's a point where you just start trying shit and it's just not working.
Mm-hmm.
Like the moment I saw Zipnix as a second entry on T side on Mirage, I'm just like, oh yeah, this team's done. this team's fucking over, man. Like, just completely was just like
it wouldn't have been over except KRB lent a helping hand, but yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man.
KRB should be a GM, like totally saved Astralis.
There was like a distinct point. You look at like Kirby's form graph on HLTV, where I'm pretty sure it was like 3 or 4 weeks after they won the major, where it's just a straight, just decline, and it like spikes for blast, and then just a straight fucking decline again.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll get off tangent too much if I just start talking about Kirby. But who do you have picked as the second place for IEM Sydney then?
Navi.
It's a tough one. Navi, fair.
I think, like, here's my problem with the Fnatic versus Navi sort of matchup. Is
because that's the marquee matchup.
Yeah,
for
I agree with you. I think those are the two most likely to face up for that second place.
Except for maybe Mouse again, if they can.
Like it really depends on how crazy Oscar shows up one day. Like, is he really gonna be that crazy? I don't know. They don't even know. Like, who knows?
Oscar doesn't know. That's for sure.
Oscar shows up. It's like, it wasn't today. And the next day, it's like, oh, it was today. It's like, okay.
Oh, cool. Thank God. Yeah.
That's great. But yeah, basically. The reason I'm going with Navi is just because I feel like Simple is the best player. Like it's like a weird.
Looking way better.
Simple's the best player clearly, but they changed the rules correctly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Basically, they put Electronic as a second star, and they put
Yep.
Flamey more on the supportive end. So, if I feel like
It's,
this system is way better than the old system because, like,
oh, to an extent.
like
I think the old system again started to feel a bit tired,
yeah,
just as it got more on, because I think there's only so much Flamey can do from that more demanding role, and I think he performed far better than people gave him credit for in that role. But
hmm
he's definitely, as we've seen throughout his entire career, he's not that person that can just straight hard carry a team. He is that third win condition who shows up
yeah, he's
one
like
in three
too. Yeah, he's
times.
basically like too inconsistent to be a secondary star.
Yeah, but that's just the way he plays the
Like
game.
that's just how he is, right? But like that's
Yeah.
why I like Electronic in this role at least for now.
And
Like
that's also why you're so, just to quickly, that was also why you're so impressive, because he was relatively consistent since DreamHack Winter,
mhm.
Flamey, as a secondary star.
Yeah,
Like, he wasn't fucking tremendous, but he wasn't dog shit.
no,
He was
he
not
wasn't.
dog shit for a lot of tournaments in a row, which is not a very Flamey thing to do. But sorry to cut you off.
But yeah, I was actually very surprised about that because like I
Yeah.
thought he was kind of gone after his puppet master left. What was his name?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Like Starks. After Starks, I thought he was
Yeah,
gone
sorry, yeah.
because like he basically disappeared like forever after Starks
And
left
he
the
was
first time.
best friends with Seized as well.
Oh, he
Those
was
two,
okay.
yeah, they were like fucking tight as shit outside of the game. Seized played all of his sites like Inferno, Overpass, Train. I think not Mirage. I think they played T-side Mirage. Like they took Mint together in Mirage. But like the point is, so many of the maps there were site players together, like best friends out of the game, perfectly complemented each other stylistically. And then he became the leader, had to change all of his roles so that like they could accommodate Simple. Flamey fell off a fucking cliff. Starix left, like literally everything could go wrong for Flamey as a player went wrong. But then Zeus came in, secondary star, picked up the AWP for no reason. Not a bad player, you know what I mean? That's why I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah. Here's my problem with Navi though. Here's why I can actually see them also losing pretty easily because they have this player. His name is Edward, and I remember you were talking about like
I've
MSL.
been talking about Edward and MSL. Like I think they're the two worst players in the world.
See, when you released the article, you're like MSL is the worst player. I was like, wait a second, there's this guy named Edward. How can you not put respect on his name?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was
That's like
yeah,
the one guy I
agree.
think could challenge MSL for that title.
Yeah, no, it's him. Yeah, him and Edward are like, mate, I wrote a research report for Thorin in I think January, and I went back through all of Navi's games from like all their big games, like from Cluj, DreamHack Summer 2015, like all the games where Edward popped the fuck off and dropped just 25 to 30 kills, and I was watching him. This makes sense. His role in the team makes sense. He's a good player. He's doing what he should. But then you just look statistically in 2018, he like has some of the lowest flash assists, some of the lowest entry success rates, has a shit KD, doesn't get blinded all that often, which means he's not being pressured that much, but just isn't fucking killing anyone. Like, kill people. It's your job within the team. Holy shit. Like, you can't just get dropped a P250 with armor, get 2 kills, and then expect people to think that's like your existence as a player, to occasionally find a multi-kill on pistols. Like, and eat bananas during the halftime breaks that people gif and like meme about. Like, he's such a triggering player to watch. Just because Na'Vi, if they got any single player from Gambit, would be so much better.
Except
if they
Mo.
replaced, yeah, except for Mo, but like any of those 4 players from Gambit for Edward, and Na'Vi become such a better team. It's crazy.
Yeah, man.
But like, how do you remove Edward from the team essentially without staging like a reverse coup on him? Because Edward is just like dug so far into those fucking trenches because he knows how shit of a player he is probably, and he knows that no team, for as long as he lives on planet Earth, no team will ever pay him the amount of money Na'Vi is currently paying him. No one will ever do it. So I bet you he's
No one
like,
should ever do it. Nobody shouldn't do it.
no, but that's why, man. Like he would be so dug into that Na'Vi.
Like, oh man, fucking Edward was decent like a year ago. I was like, but come on, it's been a year, man. Can't live on past glories, right?
And it's like, in what system though? Like, it was such a loose system, and it didn't even feel like his impact was
It wasn't even that great.
Yeah, it wasn't even meaningful
Like,
in that team.
like I'm just saying he was solid. Like that's it.
Oh,
Right?
as an individual, but like within the context of the team,
It was pretty
like
bad.
it was so
Like
yeah, so inconsequential.
yeah, it didn't really matter, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, like I agree with you. Like basically anybody on Gambit, but like I go even further. Like any serviceable like sported player, any
yeah.
random young player, any random Kazakhstani could probably do better
See,
than Edward.
he's secondary calls as well in Gambit sometimes. Like you see him his face cam and he's like giving people ideas. And like motherfucker, you should not be able to talk. Period. Like you just shut up. Like literally, oh, it annoys me so much. He's like that dude bottom fragging in a matchmaking game that's still calling strats. It's like no. No, dude, you have to be able to break double digits to call whether we take mid or not. Like that's the rules, man. Holy shit. I'm probably going.
I will say there's one great thing about Edward is like he kind of shows how great Simple really is because Simple is always forced to pull off some miracle crap because of Edward.
Yeah, it's because and it's like it's if they had a player like Hobbit or a Dren who could buy space for Simple on T side,
Man,
I think Simple would be so much better a player as well. Like there is still levels that Simple can hit if he had
the correct players around him.
If he had a Rain or if he had a Dupree instead of Edward, like dude, come on. If he had a player that could actually buy him space in the mid round, like it's over.
It's probably
over.
a Dren. Like I feel like a Dren's by far the best choice, but
yeah. Oh yeah. If we're talking within the CIS region, 100%. Because then you can secondary orb can take that off of Flamey as well.
personality wise, he works the best with Zeus apparently.
Oh, game over, dude. Game over. Can call as well. Like, yeah, that's it, man.
Shit. Like of all the people in the world, I think that's the final move, unless they can somehow resurrect Hobbit, I guess. But
We should start a GoFundMe to be like, all right, Edward, how much money do you need to retire? Like, how much does it take?
probably 1.2 million. That's the typical Navi price.
We'll get it happening. I'll start drawing up a bunch of skins in Photoshop. We'll try to get a community case going that like 50% of the profits made from the case go to like a special fund which Edward can retire from. Like, just I want to see Transcendent Simple, and I've seen hints at it, and people are saying that like he is the best, like his current form is the best form in CS history, and to an extent I agree, but at the same time I'm a bit reserved because I know there's still levels for this man.
I mean, I already called it the Simple era. Like, what do you want to say? Like,
yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah. But I would probably agree with you in the sense Na'Vi or Fnatic for the second place, and I think Fnatic might actually beat Na'Vi in a best of 3.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking map pool and Simple, because yeah, it's so reliant on Simple, and I just don't know, because Maui Snake made a really good point on the Riders block, where it's like Zeus and Edward are on both sides of the map, and Fnatic's style just revolves around finding openings from T side, so I feel like I agree with his evaluation of the matchup.
Listen, man, Simple can save the Titanic. I'm sure he could save this team.
I know he could. I know he could. But I would bank on the probability of Fnatic's stylistic favorability against Na'Vi than just simple 1v9ing. But
yeah,
like
man, he's done it before. He's done it before.
Exactly. The crazy thing is though, it's like they're not like too like far apart in terms of the odds for either of those things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like Fnatic just playing their game at an above average level and beating Na'Vi, or simple 1v9ing are like both like
pretty equal odds right this moment.
Pretty equally odds, you know. Yeah. Just absolutely nuts.
All right, so I'll talk about Fnatic for a second. So, in my opinion, I think like Fnatic is pretty close to their ceiling.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, mm-hmm. And so here's my question to you: what's the roster change to put them to the next level?
Well, in theory, because of the way their system works, you can just slot in miscellaneous God sent player to their roster.
Well, not Twist, because Twist will just go back. Like,
yeah. I don't think Disco Dublin either. Actually, I take that back. Maybe, but probably not. But who would you? I haven't watched enough of their game. But who do you replace? Like, who's underperforming? Like Flusher or Lekro or JW? because you can't replace Golden or Crims.
Yeah, basically, Crim's he might be the
Yeah.
second best player in the world. Maybe like I don't think that's a crazy statement to make.
It's contentious, but it's not crazy.
Yeah. Golden. Yeah, they already tried booting him.
You have to keep him.
But they saw the light or they saw the cash. I don't know which.
Yeah.
So they've kept him. Like between those three players,
So what? Crims, Golden. Oh,
I mean,
sorry,
JW, Flusha, and Lekro. It really depends on who's on the market. That's my problem with it.
Let me throw out a name that you might not be expecting. Modi is on the market. Definitely, like all of Heroic currently are on the market.
Oh yeah, basically Heroic imploded.
Yeah, so all of them are on the market right now looking for a get out of jail free card. You have pretty much all of Godsent on the market as well. You've got pretty much any single player from like bullshit mixed teams like that.
I tried to forget about Godsent though. Like
yes, hey, you and me both, man. That was a team that no one should remember, you know. But yeah, there's a few names out there. Like who is on Godsent? Disco Doppland, Twist. Isn't it Jumpy or something? No, Hampus, Brolin, and Freddie B. So Twist and Disco Doppland, both the names you'd probably take. I wouldn't take either of them.
See, I was thinking of just stacking an NIP player.
Yeah, not bad.
Draken?
But that would be a move. Draken, but I like Fnatic's current system of like no walk on the side.
I don't think Draken would work in the system.
Yeah,
I think Dennis would, but I think Dennis works in every system.
That would be the mint move. Take Dennis for Flusher.
Yeah,
Fuck
so
that passive shit, boys.
Yeah.
Let's just go all in on that style.
Yeah.
I think Rez would be fine in this team for any of Lekra, JW, or Flusher. I think JW is pretty important.
Or do you wait out the phase implosion and then try to get Olaf?
Oh well, that'd be ideal. Just replace Olaf for Lekra and just win another major. That'd be the way to do it.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Maybe like I don't know how many times we could rerun that roster though. It's like, are we really gonna run JW, Flusha, Crims, and Olaf again?
Why not? Why not, man? Like it worked.
How many times are we gonna go back to the past?
Enough time so we go back to the future, mate. That's
true.
That's next shit right there. Anyway.
Yeah. Basically, I actually do think a bunch of these teams, like IEM Sydney, actually feels like a bunch of these teams are gonna roster change like in a few months, right?
Well, see that's the key thing as well. And I wrote a preview for ESPN. The key narrative I have going through it is like IEM Sydney doesn't have any of the caveats of DreamHack Marseille except for Dust 2, which most teams can either ban outright or upset other teams from. So there is no excuses in IEM for any of these teams to underperform, especially when you have over a third of the teams here as essentially like dismissible APAC teams. Mm-hmm. Like there's no reason for anyone in IEM Sydney to be super like, oh yeah, no, this was going on, or we'd only like they all have LAN experience. They don't have a lot of time, but they've had enough time for us to have a decent enough gauge of a team's caliber. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think this is a make or break for a lot of teams, especially for the likes of FaZe, Mouse, Fnatic, SK definitely, Space Soldiers as well. Yeah.
Man, I thought Space Soldiers should have broken up like a year ago, but here we are.
I think Xantares is so linear as a star and what he can do, and he requires so much support from his team, but not even in terms of macro play, but in terms of firepower. That I don't see how Space Soldiers can be successful long term. But it's a good showcase if they want to end up on Hellraisers or some of those mixed teams.
I mean, Hellraisers already has Woxic, so it's like they already got the best one.
Yeah, they already found the diamond in the rough. But yeah, I think players like Mage is pretty good. Calyx has his moments. Like Injun and Paz are both, whatever to me. But
I mean, they already lost Cobbles. Like it's over for that team.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be such a hard run for them.
Like the only person who got it worse than Space Soldiers with the map changes like MSL.
Yeah, so true. Just getting roasted by me, getting roasted by Valve, just like on all fronts.
Listen, he could have survived the roasting from you. He could have survived that. He could not survive Cobble.
Cobble, yeah, that's
Cobble
such
was
a,
the actual death blow.
yeah. I love how everyone's just like, oh, thank God this map's being removed. It was so stale. And MSL's like sole tweet is like, man, Cobble was a pretty good map. Just
He's probably gonna go down with that shit.
yeah, no.
Cobble.
Rest in peace, there. Rest just being drowned in Adidas shoes and money. Just like, no, I can't escape this prison.
All right, so I think that covers it for IEM Sydney. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or are we good?
Cirque could potentially be good. And
Oh
RGM.
yeah, Cirque.
We haven't seen. Yeah, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Wasn't Cirque like? I feel like Cirque might be in a shuffle soon.
I don't know, but yeah, that's the only other narrative I think we missed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Daps has returned with a Cirque.
Yeah, with this.
Like it took him a long time, but somehow Daps has outlasted Stanislaw.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. That's so cooked. How does he keep getting away with this?
Daps literally tried to become a coach, and they still dragged him back. So here we are.
Still coming to Australia. Just suck. Every time he just walks into the server, he's just like, I don't know how to fuck. This is still happening.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, no, he's yes.
All right. See you later.
Oh, we done so?
I don't know. Is there something else you want to talk about?
Oh no, is it? We still recording?